Welcome to the Digital Fashion Innovator Series. We're back with our next guest. My name is Marie Bastian. I'm the CEO and founder of World of Mesh, and I'm your host for today's session. And yeah, this new era of digital fashion is just bringing together all these amazing talents from all around the globe. And yeah, we're here to share your story and to inspire the fashion industry at large and digital creators out there, and just to celebrate all you guys on your way as you're contributing to this big change in our industry right now. Little disclaimer, all our speakers are speaking on behalf of themselves, not for the companies they usually work at. And if you have any questions, feel free to add them in the comments. We'll see if the comment section works today, so I hope it will get going. But I have some test birds in the background figuring out what's going on. So in case we don't have any questions, we will get back to it on LinkedIn or any other platform you shared it from. All right. So with that said, I'd like to welcome my guest for today, Lauren. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And you've got your lovely earrings. I can see it. Digital wearables. So yeah, you're here today to speak about a purpose, path, and action, a kickstart into digital fashion.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, we connected a little while before, and we just have so many people that are coming into this industry and are curious and interested in how they can join and contribute. And I thought this was such a great topic to bring up, so we're really excited to dig right into it. Should we get started?
Let's do it.
All right. So first of all, the main thing of this platform is really to hear about you and your story and how you got into digital fashion. So I would love to start right there. Maybe you could share a little bit about, your first touch points and your background and, the different projects you touched along the way.
Yes, happy to. So yeah, really happy to be here. I'm excited to talk to you. I think like the first time we met, there was this strange ease and feeling that we had. Like we already had some connections in common, but yeah, I just really respect like what you do, your approach. And so I'm happy to be here sharing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I know where to start about like background. I kind of have like 3 phases in my career that I kind of consider, and like when I explain a bit of my background, and they're identified more with places. So I am American, from California, but grew up in Minnesota. So I have like been kind of climbing this ladder of fashion from a pretty early age. I started when I was 15. I was like, I know I want to do this. I want to be a fashion designer. Yeah. And so then I went to New York, had my first like sustainable fashion experience at the Reformation, which was interesting. There was some like Devil Wears Prada kind of connections, but also really cool, like to start actually getting to work. And then from there, I discovered more like the European side and London. And so London was the second place that I moved to. And there I really got to find who I was creatively. So that was really, I think, important for me coming from the US and like getting all these different perspectives. And then where I've been for the past 7 years now is Paris. So I'm here now. Recently came back from visiting some family, and yeah, it's been a ride. It's been interesting to see these different perspectives. So first starting out more on kind of like the sustainable side, and that was maybe about 10 years ago, then moving to the more like creative, some kind of places in London. I was working at Gareth Pugh, so it's very, alternative. And then in Paris, I did a program at Institut Français de la Mode for accessory design. So I switched from apparel to accessories. And then from there, I worked at Saint Laurent and Loewe. And so this was all, like pre-pandemic. And so it was definitely hard, like to kind of like keep this momentum of staying, especially as a foreigner, in like these really competitive fashion cities. And so that was kind of this repeating resistance and friction that I kept having of like, my visa's running out. Why can I still like not get a real job? Like, why have I done like 11 unpaid internships? It's just been there. Yeah, I know. And it's like, when you're in it, it's just normal, but then you kind of step back. You're like, what is going on? but yeah, and so like I just had this big dream of following this path that was like set before us, like by all these different, famous designers that are always referenced. Like I was at an event last night where someone's talking about McQueen, and it's like, those hallmark pathways that like we think we have to prescribe to reach like this pinnacle of success. And so that's definitely what I was chasing. So that's a little backstory. And then I made the switch to like Web3, and I, like most people, like do it in baby steps. Like I went like 100%. So you could do that. I don't know if I'd recommend it, but you definitely learn fast this way. And so I actually found out about it through a community called Digital X. It's like shifted a lot since then. And so that's when I learned things like what is blockchain and like how to have a wallet, starting to learn 3D. And yeah, it was really this pretty radical punk kind of feeling and community, but it really pushed me to dive right into something that felt, big and overwhelming. But the reason I entered it was definitely like for values and like how do we make the fashion industry more sustainable and more open and inclusive. So I felt like as I was sharing that viewpoint, I attracted people who also felt that. And so, yeah. And one thing, I have to plug in my computer. So my head down.
All good, all good. But yeah, I can just take over from there while you do that. I mean, so you've had this wild ride, actually, you can say. You went through the pre-pandemic, through this whole physical fashion journey, going through, I mean, really big key cities, big high fashion brands, and going through this hierarchical system, which the physical fashion industry has, and leaving and actually moving to this new digital world of fashion where you found meeting peers and other guys in our industry that just have the same mindset, that all meet each other at one level and support each other and learn together. That must have been also very therapeutic and how do you say, calming, like to experience after going through this industry, moving into this very collective community that supports each other. That's definitely a switch that I experienced as well. I have to say, not every fashion brand is tough, but it is a tough competitive industry. You get into this competitive mindset when you're studying, and it just starts right there already. And I love that you brought up that at some point you step back and you reflect on you take a step back and you look at the system and how everything works, and you really question things. That's a big part that I think a lot of people have in common that are moving into Web3, right?
Right. And like, I looked around, I'm like, there's no opportunities left. Like, what do you do when like the thing you love is so overly saturated? And I guess I reflected a lot and thought, like, what is a theme that I keep seeing in my journey? And it's of change. And like, for whatever reason, like I'm always going for something different and changing. And I used to like beat myself up about that, be like, why can't I just do the same thing? Like stay on the same path.
It's a superpower. It really is.
So like, yeah, how can you make it a good thing? And I think what we'll also talk about is how do you take change and kind of make it almost a bit formulaic, because at this point, so I've been in Web3 for about four or 5 years. And so I see some standards emerging, and like, how do we format those to help people who still want to enter and keep growing the space? Because we want to continue that upward progression towards digital innovation, like you definitely know all about.
But I just have to add into there, I have to say it again, it's a superpower. Maybe that's also something we have in common, why it clicked. I love change. Like I'm really good at going into situation, meeting new people. Like repetitive tasks are not really mine.
Right.
That's where I struggle. And it's interesting that you said that you wanted to find a strength in that, because I think that's exactly what a lot of people out there are struggling with right now, that are in the industry, that have their that are have this mindset that they love having one process and having control over situation, knowing what to expect, having exact overview. That's something those are the kind of people that are struggling with going into our the future of fashion, which is not just the future of fashion, the future of everything. The concept of being in a situation where everything just stays the same and we have systems we learn and that's it. Those days are pretty much over. And I think that a lot of us are living in this mindset from the 90s or before that, whenever you grew up, where you had this constant security around you. And we're just moving right now as a society in an era where this is just going to be like the next 20 years with Gen AI and everything going on. It's just going to be constant adapting.
Yeah, sped up.
So you're right on with your superpower there, I can just say.
Cool.
Yeah. Nice. So I'm curious. So you were telling me you had that moment with Digital X where you joined into that community of digital fashion, learning your first steps around token engineering or digital wallets and how to set everything up. Was there in this journey, was there a sense of purpose that guided you to take that path? Because I know today's a lot about purpose and finding your path actually into digital fashion. Like, how can you maybe describe how you found your way there? Were there any guidance that led you there?
Yeah, and it might be a little abstract, like before we get like more concrete about like how to actually enter like skill wise and pathway wise digital fashion and Web3. But yeah, kind of going back to like my previous path, I noticed that a lot of my decisions were made by following like the prescribed path, the aspirational path, like the one that everyone, you know, had approved with their stamp. And I like ultimately realized like after 10 years of like pushing to get to luxury and get to this mecca that it wasn't the right thing for me. And that was just like super disheartening. And so I had to realize like what's a new way like for me to make decisions that is in line with myself. So that was hard to learn. And so I think it kind of came like when you're at the bottom, then it's a lot easier to be open like to new things. Like, so I have like some friends who are still in like luxury. I don't know how happy they are with their job or they see the same problems that I saw. But like if I didn't, so basically during COVID, like I lost my contract. I had to totally figure out like how to stay in a foreign country and become a freelancer. And so I went through all that difficulty, but then there were like these like little breadcrumbs along the way. And so other things that I found just, I think by being open, like shifting from realizing like this path that even though I had pursued for so long and so hard, like wasn't the right one. The only option left is now to find like what is. And so I think, I just started to try to be more open about who I was meeting. Another thing I did like you're doing here is like I had the podcast where I listened to other people's stories, participating in events. Like the first one I went to was by Anina.net. And so this was really early. And so that's where I started to meet like initial collaborators and start to kind of form my own vision and idea of what I wanted to do in the space. So yeah.
So also like through dialogues and exchanging ideas and playing idea ping pong with other people, that also helped you, right? Find that path that you're on. And I'm curious, has that purpose or that sense of purpose that you had there that led you in that direction, has that also evolved over time, or did you pretty much like have your mind set on one goal and you're following that one purpose, or has it maybe shifted over time? And if yes, what was the influence that made you shift in different directions?
I think in like some ways, yes, it's changed. In some ways, it's always been the same. Because I've been helping like some fellow consultants and brands to kind of find like what's their purpose. I call it this gold thread exercise. And so what I do is we kind of like decode their past. And so thinking about like what are the 7 like most pivotal moments in your life, like whether it was good or negative, and kind of start to like lay them out and map it and see.
I love that.
Kind of reverse engineer those experiences. And so some of like the ones that stood out to me were definitely around like internships, around lack of access, around work, like kind of being stolen or not being protected. And so I think through the difficulty, those became the things I fight for. Now, like when I search for solutions in like this new emerging space, of like, how do we build this new industry? So I think, almost through difficulty and pain, like that is one way to find your purpose, I would say. And I think for so long, my purpose was just like fulfillment and approval of like a path that others, like kind of deemed to be successful. And then, it's unfortunate that didn't make me happy. But so even starting there before, getting like to the nitty gritty of like, what program do I have to learn, like to be really reflective about like entrusting yourself to be like, this I really like, this I don't, even if that other thing that I don't want is like what's perceived to be more important or successful or sexy. I don't know.
Yeah. Listening to your gut feeling, I always get back to that. People fall out of tune with their own perception and their feeling because they're surrounded with a lot of influences all around them. It starts at a very early age and it goes through your whole life. But I love that reverse engineering exercise that you mentioned. So for those that are like struggling to find their starting point, and to identify their purpose in like digital fashion, how they want to get the next steps going. So if we do this reverse engineering, did I understand it correct that it's not just about your career, but it's also about your life points, ups and downs? So it's not just focusing on your job or your profession that you learned or the industry you're in?
Yeah, I think I'll keep doing more practice of this, and I'll eventually make it more like a holistic, all-in-one kind of exercise. But for now, how I have it set up is first starting with like the gold thread of like starting with to create your timeline. Like I literally just went through like my iPhone photos to kind of help trigger some memories.
Ooh,
and then from there, because I have a design background, I don't know if I ever mentioned that, but designer since the start. And so then I started to kind of create these visual codes or identifiers that started to build my kind of DNA persona. Like, for example, one is kind of like extraterrestrial. So I have an alien emoji on everything. Another one is monochrome, because like I literally can't match colors very well. So I use monochrome. I'm wearing like all green right now. So that's kind of like the second phase. And then the third phase is kind of making that more practical. So it's like you have the cause, you have like, what are you fighting for? You have like, what's your kind of identity, which I call the creative codes. And then the third layer is like, now what's your path? So for now, I've kind of separated them, but I'll see if I can find a way to combine them. So how I do then the path. So that's like pretty much related to what I've learned in the past 4 years. When founding Entourage, which is one of the first Web3 fashion labels, also working with different clients like Snapchat, Brand New Vision, Metaverse Fashion Council. And so it's a concept that I call metarality. And so it's just this idea that we have like 3 spaces of existence of like where we'll interact with products, where each other have identity. So the first is obviously like the IRL, in real life, the physical. And so each of the spaces has like different benefits and constraints. And I think I'm actually like building like a little solution with AI right now to make it really fast. Like you'll just answer some prompt questions and then you'll get your pathway directly. But so for the physical space, like for me, that's more about exploring things like NFC chips or blockchain supply chains. Something that recently passed in France is like the digital product passport with the circularity law. So it's all about how do you make like the physical more sustainable and reduce consumption. Because like what I hope, right, is like there's a tipping of scales, or at least like somewhat of a balancing of using digital as an access to buy less physical product or reduce physical consumption. So that's the first phase, the IRL one. And there's 2 more.
So just for everyone listening out there, I like breaking down the words because I I'd love to include everyone, even people that are not in the digital fashion space. And it's interesting because a friend of a friend of ours just actually mentioned that it's so cool to listen to this series because she's not in the fashion industry and she gets it. She's understanding what's going on. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to break down shortly. So we're talking about two areas of digital fashion. If we talk about digital fashion, we can take the physical garment and we can add technology to it in forms of NFC chips, which is like a chip that can identify and share information. And there's different ways you can prove ownership over the blockchain, which is like a proof of ownership. Basically, it's like when you buy the Mona Lisa and you get that little piece of paper that says, "Yeah, this is the original." That's basically what that would be for a garment, which just brings exclusivity and safety also with the garment. And then you're talking about the digital fashion experience in digital environments. So in our last series, we talked about spatial experiences, augmented and virtual realities, and how you can wear digital garments, like your earrings, for example, which are not real. They're just a digital layer on your video right now, right?
Yeah, you broke it down well. I think the last thing I'd add to the physical is the like kind of circular life cycle.
Yeah.
So, how do we, like, when you're done with your garment, how do you know like where you could recycle it or resell it or reuse it or repair it?
Or also where it came from, right?
Yeah, right.
Tracing exactly where the cotton was grown, who spun the cotton, how everything's produced, are the wages paid really fairly over there. There's all these information that got lost in the physical process in the past that now blockchain is able to make visible. So it's really gonna have a big influence on campaigns if a brand is sharing like a sustainable approach. They're really going to have to prove it too. I mean, we're going to get to that point.
Cool,
Which
I'm ready. I'm tired of greenwashing.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, just go on. I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah, so I'd say, right, if you're like mostly interested in like the IRL, the physical, it's probably helpful to have a fashion background because it can be more technical around like supply chain, sourcing, pattern making, like, and now as we're moving more and more to integrating 3D to the full process of fashion, which isn't really new. Like for pattern making, for example, like I've worked as a pattern maker in not necessarily 3D, but at least like on a digital software. But I'd say, yeah, it's about tactility, and it's still somewhat a similar process as like a traditional how products are made. But I think, yeah, the shift that's really happening is moving from large quantity to these micro factories. But yeah, so
Also
it's
locally
exciting.
produced instead of
Right.
somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'd say the main goal of that is like, how do we reduce waste and reduce physical consumption? So that's the physical, I would say. So, and then you mentioned, right, the second aspect of the digital. So I break this into two different categories. And so the second one is ORL, on real life. And so that's what I call like augmented. And so like the earrings. Yeah, exactly. I've been wearing these now for like 3 years. So
and I love that you bring it in as example because a lot of people
right.
have a hard time understanding and grasping what that is.
Yeah, and like how they move. It's a bit dark. I think it'd look a little better if I had a better light like yours. But
Great. Excellent.
but yeah, so the augmented, and it's a bit different, right? Because there's different constraints. So there is no like physical kind of involved. It's for these these earrings, for example, taking a 3D model. And then putting it into, we use Snapchat Lens Studio, so it's tracking to your face. So we, I think, are still some time away from this being like really successful as far as tracking a body. I think we're getting there, but like it's kind of perceived a bit gimmicky. Like I think we still have a way to go, but I mean, now with like the Apple headset coming out, I think it will become more and more real. I think like in real life is the first phase that is like for sure already happening, definitely happening. The ORL, I think, is like the kind of next phase. And I guess another example of that would be pretty early on, like DressX did a lot of photo dressing. And so that would be like using Photoshop and now like other tools to
To
put
collage a digital
right
garment.
collage on a photo, like with a point of like digitally dressing for photo shoots or for PR and
Yeah.
kind of like campaigns. So there's like definitely a problem that's being solved with that. So yeah, that would be the second space, ORL. And so I'd say that's more if you're into communication of like media campaigns, gamification of storytelling, things that like you want to be still interacting on like the physical space, but like through a screen. So since we still either need our phone or now a headset to be able to have these things be visible. So that's the second. And then the last is, I think it's like, you know, the total like Ready Player One movie, which is so apocalyptic. I'm hoping that's not how it actually is. But so it's this idea of having like a 3D avatar self and dressing it, taking it to different environments that are totally virtual. The benefit of that is like complete creative freedom. Though there's still like a lot of things being worked out as far as like getting one look of how something like a garment would look, for example, in one space can look very different in a different space just because like games have different requirements. So I'd say that is definitely more if you're into gaming, want to have fully immersive digital experiences. If you're interested in gathering, like connecting with a large global network. So yeah, I think those are the three of how I break it out, and trying to think about like what's your intention, and even like what phase in like the fashion cycle like are you most interested in? Is it like the production creation? Is it the experience? Or I guess the digital might also be kind of more interactive, gamified, fully transcendent of your physical self.
I love it. So basically, you went into the different buckets of how digital fashion can be worn or experienced, actually. It's interesting because I just wanted to add, today I was on LinkedIn and I saw an interview. Someone was interviewing a digital fashion show somewhere in Houston, I think it was, I'm not sure. And it was asking people, okay, so what do you understand? What's digital fashion for you? And these were people that were completely out of the industry, so not in the digital fashion industry from the outside. And they're like, yeah, it's I don't know, e-com, meeting your digital needs, purchasing products online.
Yeah.
And it was just so interesting. It blew my mind because it was such a reality check. We're always very involved in our community, and I would say our tech bubble, and everything we're getting is digital fashion news, and it's so omnipresent for me and for you probably too. There's so many people out there that don't even know that what is happening here, and it's really exciting to think about it, that this is just still so early on, even though this has been around for years already, right? But I love how you explained the different ways digital can actually move into garments. You can go into physical garment by adding physical tech pieces to it, and tracking it along blockchain and other applications. And then we also have the way of wearing it actually purely digital. So there's a lot of in-between mixtures going on there, a lot of different versions. And what I also love what you said is that no matter where you are on this path, if you're just starting out on this journey and you're maybe from the fashion industry and you're very, you're a physical designer, pattern maker, developer, marketing expert, photographer, whatever, all these jobs that are in the physical world are all needed in the digital world as well. It won't be a one-to-one translation of what you're doing. It will be slightly different, but like the whole ecosystem of supply chain infrastructure, digital libraries, all these things, we need to build that up in both worlds. And so no matter what skill you're bringing to the table, it's definitely going to be needed. I love highlighting that at this point.
Right. Yeah. It's just like this whole new renaissance of opportunities. And like, that's like the fashion industry needed that so bad. So,
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to thank everyone for bringing in these comments. We have here another comment with a great session. Yes, I like the breaking down of each space within Web3 digital fashion. So glad you guys are enjoying this. Super nice to also have our community joining in here. So the comments are working. Thank you for your comments.
Nice.
Absolutely. Reality check, how the world outside in the digital fashion sees it. Yeah. I mean, it's really, that's the whole focus of this platform too. Like, I could go on into the details and get techie and use all these terms that probably a lot of people that join don't understand. They'll back out and they'll be like, okay, this is not a platform that I can really follow. So I just want to thank also you, Lauren, also for breaking down all those buckets and explaining everything in detail. Really nice.
Yeah, and I think if you think about like who started this movement and like who started tech, it's a bunch of engineers, you know, like it's a bunch of like people who are very fluent in tech. And I think what happened we're still kind of suffering from this is that we didn't think about the needs or the uses. We were just like excited about the future and the vision, which is also, I mean, we need that too. But now we're definitely in this moment of like, let's make this real. Let's make this applicable to like the issues we're facing now. I mean, especially around sustainability. And I think, yeah, things like the metaverse and like having your own avatar, like it's happening for sure, but it's going to be a lot longer than we think. And yeah, this past year, it's been hard, I think, for everyone who's like building in the space, especially like with clients I've worked with. It's like, all right, like how do you keep going if like what you're making is so early and like people just won't understand it, like the next generation might, but yeah, how do you kind of like bridge that? And so I would say it's by addressing a need, which is like really not how we work in fashion. Like this is how you work in product design, but like in fashion, never in any luxury studio was I asked a brief of like, we're solving this problem, you know. It's always like, what's the dream of this product? Like, how do we translate the DNA of the brand into like this new season's bag? Because I did bag design. And so I think it's nice that we like bring problems back to fashion and make them desirable, or like make the solutions desirable, because one without the other doesn't work either.
That's so very true. And I love that you brought that starting point, that, you know, probably a bunch of developers just started this whole, I mean, it started with 3D industry itself, right? I just remember I saw a documentary about, it was Jurassic Park and how the movie was made at some point. I think it was the Netflix movies that made us. I don't know. There's this really nice series. And there was this. They were saying that when they were starting with the first movies, they were still modeling the T-Rex and, you know, really building it in a mechanical way. And then they explained how they brought this guy on board. He said, "Well, you know what? I can do this digitally. I can actually rig a dinosaur, a T-Rex in 3D. So rigging means giving a model or a avatar a skeleton so it can move, so you can show movements, and giving it like basically joints." And he just sat down and he would just dumped all his creativity into this program, developed a 3D program, found the animation, and the first animation was the T-Rex walking. And it was just mind-blowing to the whole crew. And it was just such a moment where I was reflecting on, that's exactly what I'm experiencing, or what I experienced in fashion the last years as well, being in it very early on. And and it was just a developer sat down and said, "Hey, I know a better solution for this. We don't have to build this prototype, this huge 3x3 meter T-Rex head."
Yeah, it's like these moments of like massive leveling up that then you look back and you see, okay, that was like they say flag in the sand, the stick in the sand. There's some phrase, but like, so what I see for fashion is definitely like the creation of NFT. So it's like, why does that matter? It's because like now you can like limit like the sale of something digital, but whereas before there's no way you can like really limit a quantity and provide scarcity. Like things that were maybe more recent with fashion. I have a friend, Antonio, who did the Future Front Row holographic show. And like, it's not, you know, like a totally new idea. Like, I think it's been done in like, you know, more Asian countries, but it was a moment where even if you didn't know anything about technology, you see this and you're like, that, I get it. like I get where this is going now. And so that was another moment. And now like there's like more and more announcements with brands, like, you know, new brands partnering with like new as in Web3 native, digital native with like classic traditional brands. It's just, yeah, kind of further evidence that it's gaining momentum. So it's happening.
Absolutely. And that example with the hologram fashion show, which you brought up, which I love, I think everyone's totally fascinated and emotionally touched by it. I also heard it's just basically also removing the tech from the perceiver and the experience. So I know the Apple Pro Vision or Vision Pro is really hyping, but it's still like a device. And if you experience a digital fashion, like a hologram fashion show, without having that tech in between you, I think that was a really beautiful way of putting it. And that really explains a lot where this is heading. It's about the experience, right?
Right. Yeah, and the connection and yeah, the emotion of yeah, because I always think about in the three ways. There's always threes. I don't know why.
Yeah.
The individual, the collective, and then like the environment. So always keeping like those three in mind.
Super nice. So when I just want to finish this off with like just summarizing also this session should really focus on also helping everyone find their purpose and their path in this industry. So we talked about the different buckets that you go into. So we understand that no matter where you're coming from in the physical world, from a fashion industry point, your knowledge is essentially needed to be translated in the digital world. So there might even not, be a big space where you can just explore and build a job of your own there that doesn't exist yet. It's a really exciting time to join in. And I guess it's basically finding the purpose is really understanding what, like you have 3 circles, what you enjoy, things that make you really happy. So those moments you were talking about in your timeline, right? The intersection of that and something you're really good at your job that maybe people say, hey, you just got a really good sense of creativity, design, whatever. And if you circle that with a need in the world, a problem that needs to be solved, that you said really nicely, that intersection right there is your purpose. And it really helps like writing down those examples. What do you love doing? What do people say you're really good at? And what does the world need, or what does the digital fashion industry need? And yeah, I think that really sums it up and puts it to the point, right?
Yeah, I like how you explained it. There's something called ikigai. I'm not going to spell it because I don't know if I can spell it on screen. It's a Japanese concept that's like, what is your reason to wake up in the morning? And it's pretty similar to what you just explained. So I'd suggest, yeah, if someone's looking like kind of your core purpose to like drive your career, I'd check that out. Something I also read was Find Your Why by Simon Sinek. So that was another good reference. But yeah, if you would like to work together, I also do sessions as a coach, consultant, to help people find their purpose creatively, as well as their codes visually, and then their path to start. Like I like what you said of like building your own role, because it's a super exciting time where like you still have the possibility to like form an industry. So that's why I'm here.
Super nice. I think that's really greatly said. So guys, collect your questions. If you have any questions, feel free to add them in the comments. I just really love this session. It's been so juicy, so much guidance. I wish I would have had that when I started out, because I think similar like you, we were just like, okay, this is a cool tool. Actually, this is fun. I'm curious. What is this? Oh, I can do this with it. So it was like an exploration. And I think there's something that combines all this early adapters in this phase. Like we have this really strong curiosity. And like you said, this actually this enjoyment of change, right? We love trying new things, and we're somehow a similar crowd, so I'm not surprised that we just hit it off when we met each other really quickly. So thank you so much for the session today. And yeah, I mean, to sum it up, this whole journey is just, a combination of self-reflection, exploration, and the willingness to also adapt to new systems and new structures. So that was that's a really nice way of bringing it all together, I think.
Right. Yeah, because I too had to pivot. I've had to change. I've had to stop what I loved doing and take a break. Like it's really not linear. But then I think, kind of instead of trying to go for like the pinnacle dream of like what others say is like going to be good for you, to just challenge that and like be okay doing your own thing and setting a new standard, because the space needs it. So
absolutely. And don't be too perfectionist on the way. That's something I learned.
Yeah, it's hard, but right.
Easy, agile approaches are the best ones. Don't put too much work into I don't know, a certain project because, or learning a workflow because you might just switch the tool later. Learning like exactly the specific tool sets or workflows of a specific 3D tool, for example, like just the ones you need instead of learning the whole program. I think that's a pretty, probably a no-brainer for a lot out there, but I just want to highlight. Yeah, don't be too hard on yourself. Nice. Super nice. So thank you so much for this session. This was amazing. Maybe you can also, you mentioned that you're also there to support people if they need any guidance as a dude. Can you maybe share where they can reach you best or how they can find you?
Yeah, for sure. And I'd be happy to connect. So I have a link tree. I'm not sure. It might be tagged in the post where you have it posted. So link tree at ColoCorp. I'm also on Instagram. Probably the best place to reach me is LinkedIn. If you want to drop me a message there. So yeah, I'm happy to help, whether that's finding like your purpose, your golden thread, whether it is finding your creative identity, codes. I have done that a lot by working in luxury to kind of help package it really nicely and almost create this ease of like creating while still being aligned with your identity. And then the last of like how to find your path. And I will be releasing some new resources coming up soon, where it'll be kind of membership based, but then very modular. So you'll be able to kind of get what you're looking for. And it's called the Fashion Exchange. So it's a combination of like a series. So I'll have to bring you, keep your number available. So yeah, a combination of like interviews, case studies, and then actual like kind of pipeline workflows to kind of wherever you want to go to figure out what are those like action steps that you can do to keep moving forward. So yeah.
Beautiful. Really, really nice. I love also that you bring in actual use cases. That's what everyone's looking for. The theoretical part is nice, but I think people really need something they can really wrap their mind around, a specific case to understand really the depth and the all the benefits that these processes are bringing right now. So super nice.
Right.
Yeah, and if anyone's out there joining, I know Paris, NFT Paris is coming up in a few weeks. Also the Digital Fashion Week, Claire is rolling up and getting going. So we're both going to be there, and we'd love to connect. So if anyone's joining as well, feel free to reach out to us. I definitely love connecting with new people, and I just want to give a little shout out at this point. Really excited for that.
Yeah, and I'll be there too. Yeah, I'm always happy to hear perspective also from like those, right? If you don't have to be in fashion, you can come from any other industry, because that's also what's happening, is like this diversification of different types of jobs in fashion. So it's interesting.
It is. So many goodies to exchange at that point. Awesome. So Lauren, thank you so much for joining. This has been a treat, a pleasure. I'll be seeing you in a few weeks anyway, and wish you all the best. And yeah, if you guys had any more questions, feel free to add them afterwards. We'll also post your link tree so everyone knows where to contact you afterwards. All right.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. All right, everyone. Have a good weekend. Have a nice Valentine's Day in case you're on a date. And and for those who joined us, thank you so much for spending